Is it a bird? Is it an archering player? No, it is just a Zephyr and Zephyr Prime dive bombing to do billions of damage, and that is just one of the two builds. So if any of that sounds interesting, let's quickly hop into the video. Zephyr is one of the oldest warframes in the game, and she is almost the least used one. Not sure statistically wise which one she is, but I know a lot of people do not use her, and a lot of people actually should. I tested out Zephyr plenty of times. Today, as I mentioned, I have two builds, and yes, one of them, as you may have saw, is one where you do literally billions of damage, and she is completely broken. But before we get into all of that, we want to talk about the fashion frame. Look at that cool Harrier skin. Honestly, one of the coolest deluxe skins in the game. I keep saying this for every single one, but it is true. They just look incredibly good. You can see the color combinations, you can see the sand down, you can see everything. She is literally a dive bombing beast. Now, if you like it so far, leaving a like, a subscribe would be greatly appreciated, and hitting that bell icon helps me out a lot. And we're almost at 20k subscribers. We're almost there. Let's try to reach it. And I do want to mention, leave your comments down below in the comment section as well. I'm quite interested in what you think of the build. And enough chitter chatter, let's cover the passive. Her passive allows her to fall slower, and she's more maneuverable in the air. And her equipped weapons gain 150% critical chance bonus that additively stacks to your other critical chance mods, which is very, very nice. We're not going to be utilizing weapons with the first build at least, but it is nice to have. Tailwind is our first and honestly main ability. Tailwind, first of all, allows you to fly up in the air, and by holding the ability, you can actually hover as well, and if you aim at a 45-degree angle and directly below you, you're going to do a dive bomb. And if you press your space key again, you're gonna bounce off the ground, basically doing a wall jump off of the ground or wall, depending on what you actually hit, and you're going to do impact damage, and this damage is going to be your main way of nuking those enemies, as you might be seeing in the gameplay. But how and why are you supposed to utilize this ability? So let's start off with the damage numbers themselves. You do base impact damage, as we mentioned, and you knock down those enemies. Now, there is a very important thing, is the activation height of your ability. So when you activate it 4 meters and above, you're going to get a multiplier of 0.2. You can see the whole equation up on screen, but 0.2 plus the activation height, and then the damage gets multiplied. If you activate it below 4 meters, you will only inflict base damage. What is going to help us out even more is the augment mod target fixation. Target fixation will allow you, casting Tailwind again resets Zephyr's bull jump, which is incredibly good, and each enemy hit increases your Tailwind damage by 100%. But the drawback is the damage will reset to 0 when you reach the ground and stay on it for 2 seconds. Now, you're going to have to fly a lot, and it took me a little bit while to adjust just because my weasel brain, but you guys should be able to do much better than I do. The highest damage that I was able to gain was around 1,600,000, and keep this in mind, this can go even above. Now, when you're in your operator form, it does not count you as being on the ground, so keep that in mind. But when you switch back to Zephyr, you want to be flying as soon as you possibly can. This is what's going to allow you to one-shot and nuke those enemies. Now, the second ability is going to be Airburst. Airburst is pretty much going to ragdoll and drag enemies in. Now, on my Airburst build and gameplay in the background, you can see that I replaced this with Zata's Whisper. You do not have to. I did it just in case of those rare situations where I can't use my abilities and then an acolyte attacks me. Zata's Whisper is going to double my damage for my weapons equipped. It is not going to influence your first ability at all, considering it only influences weapons. But as I said, it is not necessary for this nuking build. The third ability is going to be Turbulance. This is going to be a wind shield. This is going to protect you from any incoming projectiles, but not melee strikes, so keep that in mind, and you are not resistant to knockdowns either, so only incoming projectiles. But this is going to help you survive a lot. Trust you me, have this active all the time and never forget it. But also, what you want to have is your fourth ability, Tornado. By pressing this ability, you will summon 3 random big tornadoes that will suck up enemies in, and if you hold down this ability, you're gonna summon all 3 at the same spot where your cursor is, and they're gonna suck up enemies in, not of course Eximus units because of their overguard, but when you take it down, you should be able to suck them in. And what these tornadoes will do is they're going to absorb all of your attacks from you and your allies, and distribute to 100% of the total damage, including critical hits and status effects from your abilities and weapons onto those trapped enemies. And the critical damage dealt to enemies trapped within the tornado is multiplied by 2 times as well. So this is going to allow you to nuke even more and just crowd control those enemies even better and much easier. And when you place this down on an acolyte and then just dive bomb him, he is going to, well, instantly disappear. Now that we talked about all of the abilities, you might be wondering, how the am I supposed to dive bomb enemies and with which build? Well, this is the build up on screen. We have growing power in the aura slot. You can put aerodynamics if you want to for the reduced damage. We have blind rage for a little bit of power strength alongside primed flow for a little bit of energy, equilibrium and Archon Shards for both of them for, of course, giving us energy. We have target fixation, which we mentioned earlier, primed continuity for duration, adaptation for survivability, overextended, cunning drift, Molt Augmented and Arcane Energize. Now, Molt Augmented is not necessary here. The second thing that I recommend you can use is Molt Efficiency, but your duration doesn't have to be too long. Keeping in mind, the main things that you want to focus on is a lot of efficiency. In this case, we have a lot of things that give us a lot of energy. We want to focus on maxing out our range and also keeping our duration somewhere in the mid levels. Considering your first ability and target fixation will not benefit and increase your buff with power mods. It will always stay 100%, so that's why we're not focusing on any power strength other than the 2 mods that we have here and that 1 arcane. Now, alongside the build, we do want to talk about the Archon Shards as well. Here we have 1 red one giving us 10% duration, and then we have 2 yellow ones increasing our casting speed by a total of 50%. I think you do not necessarily need any more Archon Shards on this Warframe, but if you want to, you can put on more ones or even Tau Force if you really want to. Other than that, we want to talk about the focus school of choice, because in this case it is actually going to be very, very useful, because we are going to be transferring to our operator when we don't want to be on the ground, for example life support and other things that we need to activate. We have Madurai. Madurai will give us through power transfer, it is going to give us casting speed, and then sling strength is going to give us power strength if you sling a couple of times. This is going to be incredibly good. We need casting speed as well, so this is a free 40% and a little bit of power strength, which doesn't go that long of a way, but it can be helpful. Other than that, we do have one and only one weapon here, and it is the Zephyr Prime. This is gonna be my main status spreading build and also killing the acolyte if my abilities don't work build, so it is good for both. Other than that, you can utilize really what you want, but you're gonna be dive bombing enemies anyway. Nonetheless, you might be wondering, what is the second build? Well, the second build is going to be where you're going to be utilizing your secondary weapon, in this case the Onos. As you can see, this is the Onos build right here alongside the evolutions that we use, because this is an incarnate weapon. The great feature about this incarnate weapon is when it goes into its incarnate mode, you will basically fire off a laser beam that slowly deals damage to enemies, and then when it fully charges up, it's going to do one massive burst of damage. This is gonna pretty much allow you to one-shot, two-shot acolytes without any issue. Even the base form of the weapon is incredibly good for killing the acolyte, as you might be seeing right now in the gameplay in the background. And the only difference in the builds is, well, you're gonna see it up on screen right now. This is the Zephyr pistol build. Here is where we utilize Airburst rounds. We utilize Airburst rounds, which is going to increase our damage on our secondary by 40% for 14 seconds per enemy hit, which is going to be incredibly good. And the other augment that you can utilize here is going to be Funnel Clouds. Funnel Clouds is an augment for our 4th ability that is going to allow us to create 8 smaller tornado clouds, which are not going to drag enemies in, but it's going to allow you to apply status effects to more enemies and deal out more damage. And you can replace it with Umbral Intensify, for example. Other than that, the build pretty much stayed the same. We are utilizing Narrow-Minded now and Arcane Velocity for extra fire rate on our secondary, because it is very much useful. And we do have Breeze, Frostbite, and the Aura alongside one of the most important things. We do have Roar instead of our first ability. Roar pretty much increases the damage of our abilities and also our weapons, and that is going to be incredibly good. If you feel like you have too much energy and you don't have Arcane Energize, you can try Molt Reconstruct, for example, which is going to heal you as well for each energy spent on abilities. Or, for example, you can utilize Molt Augmented to increase your power strength even a little bit, or apply those Archon Shards if you want more damage. One little special secondary, just a recommendation for you guys, is going to be the Laetum. This is the Laetum build alongside its evolutions. Honestly, these 2 weapons are the only 2 weapons that I utilize. You can try other ones. There's probably some better ones out there, but these ones work perfectly for a Zephyr, so I highly recommend you use them. And now for the companion of choice. I utilize Nautilus Prime with my Dive Bomb build, but that is only because I use Zata's Whisper. If you do not use Zata's Whisper and just use the second base ability of Zephyr, However, you do not need the Nautilus. He is not needed. You can pick the Primer Doggo, the Prime Hound. This is the build and also the weapon of choice. This is going to apply loads and loads of status effects and occasionally nuke enemies as well. And that is perfect for her clouds and also just dive bombing and also utilizing your secondary because you can prime those enemies, weakening them and also just dealing more damage in general, which will always help you out. And now, how are you supposed to play the builds? Well, let's cover the dive bomb build first, considering you're going to be doing much more damage here. First of all, activate your third ability. You want to have this ability active all of the time. Second of all, if you're utilizing Airburst, drag enemies in, go jump up in the air, bullet jump, double jump, and then just press your first ability and dive bomb and slowly gather up your damage. As you slowly build up your multiplier, try not to land on the ground, and when you need to switch to your operator, remember that. And that's pretty much it. Just dive bomb as much as you possibly can, and you're gonna gather up the damage, summon your tornadoes when you possibly can, drag more enemies in inside of those tornadoes to deal more damage. Your Primer Doggo is gonna do its thing, and that's pretty much it. You can utilize the Cedo, for example, to prime the enemies and then just deal even more damage. If you're utilizing the second build, activate the Roar, activate your fourth ability, your third ability, and then your second ability to drag enemies in, start shooting, gather up headshots, they'll charge up the incarnate form, and you're pretty much done. And does that, keep dealing damage, charge your incarnate form, keep dealing damage, summoning tornadoes, and that's pretty much it. Primer Doggo doing its thing, and you be doing that damage. Hope you guys enjoyed. Zephyr is a really, really cool Warframe. I'm very much in love with her, and she's definitely making my top 5 coming out very soon, so keep an eye out for that. I do hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, do leave a like, comment down below on what you think of the builds, and do subscribe for more content. 20k, and let's see, 30k by the end of the year. What can happen? This has been your lovely host, the Gaming Weasel, over and out.